The female blood ninja of Mortal Kombat. Skarlet's actually a rare ninja that I think I haven't ever drawn in my life. Now that I think about it, I've never drawn a picture of Skarlet before. It's got to be of a few select ninjas that I think I haven't drawn. Anyways, I'm actually drawing Skarlet as a request coming from all of the female characters that I've drawn recently. I've actually been suggested a couple times, if I'm not mistaken, to doing a design almost for Mortal Kombat 1, seeing what she would look like. Gonna be interesting because the characters from Mortal Kombat 1 look so different from how they've looked in the past, but at the same time, I really like how much like Ninja Skarlet from MK9 I felt was cool, but her design really wasn't anything noteworthy about the way she looked other than the fact that she didn't have any clothes on. But she definitely had a lot more nuance to her design in Mortal Kombat 11. And she was one of the female character designs in Mortal Kombat 11 that I don't think that I really had that much of an issue with. Some Jade skins I thought were cool, and some of the Katana ones for the most part, but because a lot of those, they had variations where they were revenants, there's a lot of the designs for Sindel, Jade, and Katana I'm just not a fan of. Cassie's okay, not really sold on Sonya. We're not going to speak of Cetrion and Chronica, but Skarlet I think had a bunch of cool skins and designs in Mortal Kombat 11. I always thought she was a really interesting character, especially the way she looked in MK11. I wish they did more with her actual character than what they did. She's not even really featured in the story all that much. So this is my chance to sort of see what I could do coming up with a design for the character, so let's get to it. Alright, right off the bat, didn't really have a broad idea for a pose for Skarlet, outside of the fact that I kind of just wanted her standing there sort of holding out almost like a ball of blood in her hand. Really gross how much Skarlet's use of blood is in the Mortal Kombat games, to be quite honest, but I mean, it just is what the character is. So, like I said, I knew I was going to have her sort of like holding blood in her hand. This is as far as I thought of with the pose. A lot of her design was kind of on the fly. There wasn't too much of a plan there outside of I knew I wanted her kind of sort of ninja-esque, but I didn't know necessarily how I wanted that to look. I took a gaze at a few sort of previous Skarlet designs and looks online, but there was nothing really concrete in my mind as far as a plan is concerned when I was coming up with her. So going off the cuff, I knew that I was going to give her like a hood. Just, I don't know why hooded designs for the Mortal Kombat ninjas always look cool to me, like a Scorpion or Ermac. Outside of Jade, none of the females really have that. Melina doesn't and Katana does it, and I feel like one for Katana actually would be kind of cool. Even a Melina one, now that I'd say that out loud, would be awesome, but since I've never taken that chance to do one with them, I figured Skarlet would be perfect to actually give a hooded design to. So I was going there with her, and I also wanted to make sure that I left the mask on her as well. I didn't want to draw a faceless Skarlet, so I went with that. As far as her top is concerned, I wanted her outfit to look a lot more like I wanted some aspects of like a traditional ninja costume to be in Skarlet's design. I wasn't going to go with the full-on basically underwear design that Skarlet almost had in Mortal Kombat 9. My initial thought process was to give her sleeves. As I'm drawing this, you could probably see in the video, I get rid of that sleeve design. At least on one arm, I think I leave the sleeve on the other one. Just because to me that looked more interesting than her just having two sleeves. She almost looked too much like a ninja. Looked like a really bland design, so I changed that after a while. But I just added little ropes and stuff like that to hold the places on her costume for like accessories and any type of weapons and stuff that she might have on her outfit. I also like the idea of like sort of bandaged or taped sort of fists or arms and stuff like that. I don't know why that appeals to me. Part of that is just being a professional wrestling fan and watching so many people tape their wrists and whatnot in wrestling. I don't know, I like it in designs. And in recent years, there's a lot more of it in Mortal Kombat designs. So I did that here with Skarlet, but I only did it on one arm. Like I said, I don't know why that sort of imperfection and asymmetry. I don't know why my brain likes that so much, but I ran with it. I also gave her an undershirt in the beginning too. I eventually went away from that as well. I felt like it was too much. But as far as sketching out the design, that was pretty much it. And I gave her like little like armor pieces on certain pieces of her clothing as well. Like I said, it wasn't too much thought going into that. It's just a lot of it's just on the fly, random, does this look good to me type of a thing. And I sort of put it on the design. As usual, when I do a lot of these redesigns that created a bit of a problem, I didn't have the idea of how I was going to color her. The color scheme was going to be obvious. I know she's going to be black and red, but what pieces of her clothing is going to be black and what's going to be red was kind of a question mark for me. And what I soon discovered in the coloring phase of working with Skarlet was I didn't necessarily know where I was going to have the red in her clothing and where I was going to have the black at. So with that not knowing of where I was going to put the reds and the blacks in her designs, I did a lot of flip-flopping. Her costume actually started off with a lot more red than I eventually went with. I don't know why. It might have worked, but I just felt like it was way too much. It looked interesting, but I don't know why it just didn't look cool enough for me to actually run with. Maybe had I shaded it in and then tried it after the fact, it would have looked better, but I won't try to take that chance. So I left her with a sort of black and gray design with a lot of red accents. And then I settled on one of the sleeves actually being red, which added a lot more to her look in my opinion. Being honest, before I continue, I just want to remind everybody, if you like the video, you've enjoyed yourself so far and enjoyed the video, then go ahead and leave a like and subscribe if you haven't to the channel. Now getting back to the video, I actually wasn't entirely sold on this design from a coloring standpoint until I actually started shading. The sort of dark design with the red accents was as good as I thought it was gonna get. But once I actually started shading her face and parts of the outfit going forward, it was starting to piece itself together. I started to get sold on the design a lot more. It's like as I just committed to it and was like, okay, this is good enough, I can move forward, then everything started rolling from there. Especially when I started doing some of the metal pieces on her costume. I don't know why it started making it stand out a lot more. And then also the little sash or whatever in the front of her costume, the red accents on that. I'm glad I decided to do that and not just leave it as one full-on color, because that sort of helped make the design pop a little as well, as opposed to just making it all black or all red like I almost did at the start. So as much as the design started to come together and come alive when I shaded her, and boy did that help out a lot to me. Once I added the highlights in, I felt like I was really onto something. This is now one of my favorite redesigns that I think I've done on the channel so far. I'm putting this in the category of how I feel about my Ermac design and my Jade ones, which are actually two of my favorites that I've done on the channel so far. Specifically that Ermac one. I don't think I've had this much fun doing the design outside of, like I said, that Ermac one, and maybe doing the Dragon Ball redesigns that I think was the first one that I did. This just started coming together so well when I started adding the highlights to it. And to me, it still reads as Skarlet while looking different. So that was pretty much the finished product for the design. Like I said, I wanted a design that still sort of stayed true to Skarlet looking like a ninja and having ninja aspects to her clothes. But I'm personally proud of how this one came out, especially considering it's my very first time ever drawing Skarlet in life. I really like how this one came together. So I'd love to get you guys' feedback on what you think of the design yourselves, whether or not you think this is actually good enough for Skarlet in Mortal Kombat, and whether or not you would think it would fit for Mortal Kombat 1 design at all. As I always say, the feedback is greatly appreciated, and you all have a good one, and I'm out.
Skarlet wins. Flawless victory.
Alright, this was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So I've never actually drawn Kotal Kahn a day in my life, and so it never even dawned on me just how challenging of a character he is to draw. He has such an intricate character design, In his character itself, you can debate whether or not you think that NetherRealm did a great job of portraying and illustrating the character, but he does have some layers and complexities to his character. I feel like he actually is pretty cool. They did a much better job of sort of rehashing his character in MK11 to me than it was in MKX, where he was beat up constantly by the combat kids. This is much better. But that being said, I also do find it annoying that Kotal Kahn was mentioned as a throwaway line in the story in Mortal Kombat 1. It's another case of a character that I really wouldn't mind to have seen in the game, but that's neither here nor there. Most of my redesigns recently have been either for DLC characters or characters that are missing, so I should just get used to this at this point. But in any event, I was suggested to do a redesign of Kotal Kahn, so I want to do a Kotal Kahn for MK1, which the nature of MK1's designs in the first place already makes this challenging in and of itself, and then with Kotal Kahn's actual design and trying to hold true to the character, this was a doozy. So without further ado, let's see what happens. Now, to start off with, I had to make a judgment decision in the beginning of the posing stage for this. I didn't know whether I wanted him to be holding the sword over his shoulder, because I thought that would be kind of a cool pose, but I also thought it would be cool if he just sort of had the sword stuck in the ground right in front of him. I ended up going with the latter one simply because a lot of General Shao's poses for Mortal Kombat 1 have him with the sword the battle axe sort of behind him. Specifically his pose in the gear menu in Mortal Kombat 1, or the skin menu for lack of a better term. So I just went with the sword being in front of him. Outside of that, the actual posing of him was rather simple. Then getting into the design was where things got complicated. And I'll tell you what problem that I ran into that I've normally ran into in just about all of my redesigns since I started doing this here on the channel, but it proved to be a much bigger problem here. But before I get to that, just his headdress and what I wanted sort of his head to look like, or how I wanted it to be designed, was it was problematic from the start. I was initially going to try and go for a jaguar mask, but I eventually settled on something closer to almost like a snake-like design. I'm not even sure if it comes across as that or not, but it's weird. I made it, well, we'll get to the coloring in a second, but I made it this weird golden snake. Then I didn't want the full-on, because I knew I was going to give him pants, because everybody in Mortal Kombat 1 is completely covered from head to toe, and while I don't mind Kotal Kahn being covered up, that design for his character normally isn't. He has stuff covering his unmentionables and his shoulders, and that's about it. I did not want to do that, so I gave him pants almost like General Shao. I was about to call him Shao Kahn again. I'm calling him Shao Kahn, never mind this. The same way Shao Kahn has pants in Mortal Kombat 1, I did the same thing for Kotal Kahn. But because I knew his lower body was going to be covered up, I wanted to try to cover as little of the upper body as humanly possible. Kind of sort of still failed at that. I gave him this weird feather sort of thing around his chest. He has that in other designs as well, but I didn't make it as big or to cover as much space as those do, on purpose. I also gave him a shield, a little shield design over his shoulder that I actually saw in a concept art for Mortal Kombat 11 for like the Ashtet. So I thought that'd be kind of cool. So I gave him that little shield with sort of bones sticking out of it. And then I wanted his feet to be exposed, because one of the more interesting parts of Kotal Kahn's design is his actual skin and the fact that it glows and does all the freaky stuff in the sun. So I still wanted to have a bit of his skin exposed, so just thought the hell would have just exposed parts of his feet. Figure that's something else, and it'll add from a color standpoint in the design. Also, I'm gonna take this time out for a second in the video to remind you to go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't, if you enjoy the content you're seeing, which leads me to the actual coloring phase. So I didn't think about what I wanted his actual color scheme to be before I drew it, and that was a disaster to say the least, because I didn't really have a color scheme in mind. So I kind of just winged it, and for somebody with as many colors and complexities as Kotal Kahn, that was a gigantic mistake. I really should have thought that through a little bit more before I did the design. Just being honest here. Initially, I actually made his hair blue and purple, the purple was bothering me tremendously. So I actually left it in, but I sort of made the long streaks of purple that I had teal. You may end up seeing that later in the video because I did that later in the actual paint itself. It just bothered me so much I went back and changed the hair. Outside of that, I used a lot of browns and reds in the design. Just thinking along the lines of him being sort of like an outworld warrior, I wanted him to look a lot like the citizens of this new bright Adenian looking outworld. So I don't know, I'm thinking his design looks more like the outworld people than it does the Aztecs. Maybe I could be wrong, I'm not sure. But I wanted it to look like the people while still keeping Kotal look like Kotal. So his design is colorful while his actual clothes is not. A lot of reds and browns in his look in terms of how I put it together. But I also left certain aspects of like his armor and stuff gold, just because, I don't know, there's a lot of teal in the design, so I wanted to stick some gold in there too. Also, I'm a big fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I love the color scheme. So in any event, probably the only thing color-wise that I have my mind set in stone with from the start. I also had to go back after the very beginning of coloring the picture and sort of add his tattoos and all sorts of like tribal designs or anything that I wanted to put in the picture after the fact. Felt like it'd be better if I had colors in mind and then went back and sort of added those details in rather than trying to come up with them on the fly. I had enough problems doing things on the fly that I didn't want to go back and try to figure that out too. Also, in doing the highlights and shadows for the picture itself, I also had to remember that the actual light parts of his skin, I needed to go back in and put the shadows below that because it actually illuminates the skin itself, so there's no reason why you would still see the shadows. Small detail that I didn't think about until in the moment while I was coloring the picture that I sort of needed to change. Outside of that, this was basically a big matter of trying to get like really intricate minor details colored and highlighted in this picture. It made me actually notice just how meticulous Kotal Kahn's design is. But I'm not gonna lie, I do like how different this design came out from how normal Kotal Kahn outfits look. Specifically the actual headdress that he has on his head. It's so wild in comparison to the traditional Kotal Kahn looks. And considering he's not actually a Khan of Outworld or anything like that, I don't know why this feels like it fits more. I don't know, to me he looks more like a warrior or a soldier with the design I gave him than his actual normal design, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And I could be wrong, but that's just how I feel about it. So I don't know, this was a really tough design to actually come up with, just trying to find a design that looks different but is so much in the vein of the normal character or the traditional character that we know from MKX and 11. And then, like I said, coming up for a color scheme for Kotal was actually more challenging than I thought it was. Like I said, I really should have gave that a lot more thought before I ever decided to start on this in the first place. But in any event, that is the painting of Kotal Kahn, a redesign in the vein of Mortal Kombat 1. Very simple design, at least as simple as I think I could make it. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you have any ideas for fighting game character redesigns, anything along those lines that you would like to see me do, feel free to drop one in the comments below. I may or may not get to it, but trust me, I do contemplate and see all the designs. Some of them catch my attention and make me want to draw them, other ones not so much. But I appreciate all ideas nonetheless, trust me. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. And you all have a good one, and I'm out. Bulma! I don't know why I had the idea almost along the lines of like Bulma having like a battle suit. Just thinking like if this is about the Dragon Balls and collecting the Dragon Balls, I kind of can't do anything Dragon Ball related justice and not have Bulma a part of it. And I have no female characters in this roster. I was almost going to draw Mai, but then I thought at the last minute, Bulma's infinitely more important than she is. She's kind of the main character along with Goku, at least in the beginning. So, I mean, without Bulma, this adventure kind of never takes place in the manga, so it's like I have to make her as a character. And the only logical explanation for Bulma to be able to fight is if she had a suit that allowed her to be able to fly and use special powers and all the craziness. So, this is what I came up with. If you're wondering why the bright yellow design for the suit, it mainly came from her design on Planet Namek and Dragon Ball Z. I wanted to roll with that and create a battle suit for her that sort of looked in the vein of that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That was the entire thought process. It's like Bulma just has this crazy mechanical suit that she can put on to be able to fight other people. She can at least beat up Yamcha, like, if nobody else. The idea of Bulma as a playable fighter is kind of cool too. It's crazy that she hasn't been playable as a fighter in any other game. I feel like this is such an easy concept to come up with and just throw in a video game. Like, why is Bulma never playable as a fighter? Could fight with Hercule, but you can't use Bulma. Even though I do get Hercule as an actual martial artist, it's like Bulma can make a suit. Like, she's supposed to be a genius. She made everything else. It's like, she can do this at least. And it's so absurd of having Bulma as a fighter. This easily became my favorite design. And it was the most fun and original one out of all the ones that I came up with.
We are many. You are but one.
Alright, so a lot of people are sort of, in a nice way that I can put this, is indifferent about Ermac's new Mortal Kombat 1 design. His actual Mortal Kombat 11 design, or what was supposed to be intended for it, is absolutely amazing. But that's not the direction they went into for MK1. But it got me to thinking, it looks like they're trying to go with the more mummified look for Ermac. I'm not really sure if I'm a fan of that. He just looks less ninja-y and way more, I don't know, zombie-like, dead. I'm not sure what you want to call it. I'm not even sure. Maybe that's what they were going for. I have a lot of questions with this design. I don't hate it like a lot of people seem to do, but I do admit there's a lot of different directions they could have taken with this. But it got me to thinking, with the style that they actually did this in and the manner that they took it in, would I be able to come up with a compelling Ermac design that looked so unlike the typical ninja designs that we've seen in the past? So that's sort of what I tried to do in this video. So the first hurdle that I really had when coming up with this design was drawing Ermac and keeping that somewhat mummified look, or the head wrap look, but I wanted his face to be showing for whatever reason. So I did actually make the wraps and just put a hood over his head. That was the initial hurdle in the designs that I made for Ermac. Then going from there, it was just a matter of the details that I wanted in his design and the look that I was trying to go for. I already knew that I was going to be doing a lot of doing a little soul effect and stuff after I finished the picture. I sort of already had that in mind, as well as I wanted a large glowing sort of eyeball in the center of his outfit. So with those two things in mind, I knew I was going to be getting glowing green in the picture, so I just focused on getting the meat and potatoes of the red design on his base out of the way. I also, for some reason, had an idea of giving him one long sleeve and just having wrapped forearms and hands. I don't know why I wanted to do that so badly, but it was, I don't know, it was just a thing that I wanted to try. I don't know, it was sort of weird. I wanted him to have a lot of wrappings and bands and stuff on his clothes and whatnot, but I didn't want that sort of mummy look that he was given in the design for MK11. I think that's one of the biggest things that hurts his design, is he's such an ugly looking character. And looking at his MK11 design, the intention for him wasn't to look that hideous. And even in past Ermac designs, like Mortal Kombat Deception's Ermac designs is one of my favorites. He didn't look that way there either. I also loved his MK9 design, which is also close to that one, but his face is also entirely wrapped. So the corrupted sort of look and whatnot, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I mean, I get it, but that mummy look is something that I'm not necessarily a fan of. So I wanted to have small elements of that, just with wrappings and stuff in the designs, but I didn't want to focus on that. And so I made it a point not to go there. So that being said, trying to just base out an actual look for Ermac was just the first hurdle, trying to like piece something together. And I'm drawing it with the envision of seeing this like as a 3D model in game, like seeing it in actual movement and action. The one sleeve, to me, I don't know why I thought that would be cool. I have no idea why I thought that would be cool, but I wanted to try it. And then I got to the point where I thought to myself, yeah, designing certain characters is a lot harder than it actually appears in one's own mind until they start just like fooling around and drawing things down. Because trying to figure out the color of Ermac's clothes was a hurdle in of itself. Obviously, I know it's going to be black and red, but what I wanted black and what I wanted red was an entirely different issue on itself. And I didn't want it to be a completely dark design because I felt like something like that should be reserved for like a noob Sabat. But at the same time, I didn't want too much red either. So finding that balance and that fine line was also a bit tricky. All in all, I felt like I got a pretty unique design overall for Ermac, and an outfit that I felt like would have fit in Liu Kang's new world of Mortal Kombat 1. So if Ermac was going to get a redesign, I don't feel like mine's is too far-fetched, even though I'm not really sure if it looks better than the one that they came up with for Mortal Kombat 1. Sort of made me appreciate the concept artists that work on these games a lot more, because yeah, trying to come up with an original cool design for Ermac was a lot more daunting than I originally thought about. Like days ago, I did one for Terry Bogard, and because Terry has such a definable look and such a historical precedent with how he looks, and his Garu Market of Wolves design is so far away from that, doing a redesign of Terry was rather easy for me and rather simple to pull off. And I sort of liked how that design came out. Not that I don't like how this one came out, but I don't feel confident that this is a design that's any better or worse than what has already been come up with for the MK1 game. So I don't know. I'll let you guys look at this final finished product and be the judge as to whether or not you think this was a hit or a miss, as to whether or not it would fit in the new Mortal Kombat game, or how this looks as an Ermac design in general. Also, I would love your take on what do you think this design is actually missing, or what could have been changed to sort of take this design over the top, or whether or not you feel like it's pretty good or better than the one that currently came up in the Mortal Kombat 1 game. I know there are a lot of you out there that actually like the new Ermac design a lot better than some of the ones in his previous games. I've seen some of you online, so I know that you exist. There's just a lot more of a vocal community that's actually condemning the design, and I don't think it's that bad. It's not the first thing I would have went for Ermac, but it's not as hideous as everyone's saying it is. But in any event, I love your feedback on this design and in the new Ermac design for the game. And you all have a good one, and I'm out. Okay, so when we last left Fujin in Mortal Kombat 11, he was a servant to Shang Tsung, him and his brother Raiden. But now it's a new timeline, it's a whole new era. Liu Kang's a fire god, he's changed everything. So what is Fujin up to now?
I need a great female martial artist. Know any?
You need to meet Raiden's sister.
No Earthrealm woman can fight like an Umgadi.
Madame Bo, Raiden's sister. And those are just the women I know.
My sister's upset that you haven't been writing.
I will write her as soon as we're done.
Okay. Alright. So I got asked to do a redesign of Fujin. I've actually drawn Fujin a couple times on this channel in the past, but it has been a long time since I have drawn him, so I wanted to draw Fujin again. But in thinking about Mortal Kombat 1 and the fact that they did a gender swap with Fujin, I honestly thought what a challenge it would be to actually try to draw Fujin as a female. I'm kind of expecting going in that this is going to piss a lot of people off. I know there's quite a few people out there that doesn't like the gender swapping that they're doing with certain characters in Mortal Kombat 1. As far as I'm aware of, Fujin and Bo Raicho are the only two people they've done it with. Why is it that they've only done it with characters associated with Kung Lao and Raiden? It's strange. But in any event, those are the only two characters I've known that they've done that to. I don't mind it. I personally thought that Boracho was a horrible character to begin with. Just a fat, gross dude. Like, he just needed a makeover anyway. So to make him an entirely different person and a woman, I don't even mind it at this point. But Fujin was an odd one. I'm not even sure if I understand why they chose to make Fujin a female or why they chose to gender swap him. And just for full disclosure, we don't officially know that Raiden's sister is supposed to be Fujin, but considering the fact that we've only known him to have one sibling, and now that sibling is a girl, it's safe to assume that Fujin's a female now. But honestly, the more I think about it, the less I actually mind it, and the more intrigued I was by the idea of actually drawing a female Fujin. And to be quite honest with you, it's another one of those cases where it's a character that I wouldn't mind being in the game, instead of all the Homelanders and the Omni-Mans and all the other guest characters that they're sticking into the game. Like, there's like 55 Mortal Kombat characters that's missing, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. I'm not here to start complaining. I'm here to start drawing, so let's go. Alright, to start off with, the pose that I initially was going to use to actually draw female Fujin was trash. I wanted her standing with her arms sort of out, almost like she was summoning wind or something, but just her standing there with her arms out looked kind of crazy. It was just such a bland pose, I ended up changing it, so I kind of gave her a bit of the Sindel sort of pose that I actually did not too long ago on the channel. I sort of revisited that to draw Fujin here. And then after locking the pose down and getting ready to start the details, that was the first time it actually dawned on me. I'm drawing Mortal Kombat 1 Fujin, which we now suspect to be a female. She's human, because she wouldn't be a god like Raiden. Raiden's human now, so there would be no reason for her to be missing her pupils or to have white hair. So I went, not only am I having to draw female Fujin, I'm having to give her dark hair. I don't have to do it, but I want to stay true to what the actual narrative of the game is when doing this design. So yeah, it's like I need to change her entire hairstyle, or at least the color, not the hairstyle itself. So it got even more intriguing in the act of actually drawing this picture. Fujin's his actual ponytail was ridiculously long in the old games anyways. So to be quite honest, I didn't even really need to change Fujin's hair all that much in drawing him as a female now. So at least blocking the hair out was simple enough. As far as the clothes are concerned, I wanted to give an outfit that stayed true to Fujin, but I'm not gonna lie, I was also kind of going for something that looked like it should fit this newer Kung Lao and Raiden. I wanted you to at least be able to look at the three characters and think that their clothing sort of fit together, even though I still think Kung Lao has the worst default outfit of any of the characters in the game, or at least one of them. I wanted somewhat the clothes to sort of match up with those, though I did take liberties with Fujin's pants. I sort of borrowed from the actual style that I did in the Skarlet design and used that for her pants here just to make it more interesting. I just didn't want her to have straight green pants like she has in so many other Mortal Kombat games. Also, being really brief and getting this out of the way, if you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video or would like to see more from this channel. Back to the video. Now, I also threw in an amulet simply because, well, not an amulet, but a little, I don't even know what you call it, but Kung Lao has a small little thing on his clothes. I don't even know what it is, but it looks like a mini amulet, even though I know that's not what it is. But I gave the same thing to her just because, hell, Kung Lao has it and Raiden actually has the amulet, so I'm going ahead and give this to Fujin as well, which I imagine Fujin would have to have something in order to be using wind powers to begin with, so I went ahead and drew that for her in this picture. And then the coloring phase. That actually got a little bit dicey simply because I wanted to stay true to Fujin's actual color scheme, but Fujin has a lot in his old designs. I knew I was going to keep the green pants that he traditionally has in every costume, but as far as everything else, I didn't know what I was going to do. Since that gave me options, by default, I'm always going to roll with blue. So I sort of started leaning towards a more blue and brown design. Considering the color of her skin already, the blue actually popped a lot more. Lucky me. So outside of the pants and the little sashes and stuff that she has on her clothes, giving her a blue top and sort of the blue boots and the silver and the brown, that heart of that color scheme was really, I don't know, it just pieced together and came along really well in this design. So then in the shading phase, everything just sort of started to click from there. It's crazy, the more I started shading it, the more she actually really started to look like a Mortal Kombat 1 character to me. I'm not sure if she necessarily looks like she should be Raiden's sister, but she at least looks like an MK character now. Especially the deeper that I started to get into the shadowing phase of this design. The highlight phase actually took me quite a few tries only because I never thought about where my highlights would be coming from in this picture. But it didn't take me long. Once I figured all that out, I went ahead and knocked out the highlights for this picture. And in actual pretty short order in comparison to a lot of the other designs I've done, specifically the Kotal Kahn and the Skarlet one, female Fujin was finished. And now that she's done, I am very curious as to what you guys think of this design and whether this would be accepted for a gender swap that nobody asked for, to be quite honest. So let me know what you guys think of female Fujin in the comments below. Once again, as always, feedback is greatly appreciated. And you all have a good one, and I'm out. Alright, so this is an odd one. So I got a request to do a redesign of Mokap from the 3D era Mortal Kombat games. I can't even give you the specific game he was introduced in. I believe it was Deadly Alliance. This has to be by far the weirdest request for a redesign that I think I've gotten on this channel. Just Mokap is just such a weird choice, but I initially didn't even entertain it just because I don't even know how I'm supposed to draw that. Like, looking at the Mokap design, it's a motion capture suit and a backwards hat. Like, that's all that the design is. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Striker's Mortal Kombat Armageddon outfit is so bland I often confuse it with the Mokap one, but it's another conversation. But getting requested to do this, I couldn't, I don't know what in the world I was supposed to do for Mokap, so all I started doing was just studying motion capture designs, and the only thing that I could wrap my mind on was what I eventually ended up doing in this design, which is taking a guy that almost looks like Johnny Cage but not quite and putting a motion capture suit on him. Just updating it so he didn't just look like a bland motion capture outfit, though at least making it look slightly more interesting. So this was what I got for it. Alright, so starting out, I already wanted to give Mokap a bit of a simple base pose, but as I said earlier, I wanted the motion capture guy to be a lot like Johnny Cage, almost like his motion capture guy and his stunt double is one and the same. And I still wanted to have a bit of Johnny Cage's personality there. Obviously, he would have to be like the perfect choice for Johnny, right? So I added the middle finger onto the base pose. Then getting into the design phase, I knew I wanted him to obviously look somewhat like Johnny. I didn't want him looking or resembling anything to the original Mokap, just because it's just, to me, a bland guy in a regular old motion capture suit. To be honest, now that I say that out loud, I'm not sure how much that changed anyways, but I did want him to at least appear to look sort of like Johnny Cage without looking like Johnny Cage. So the one thing that I did to make that apparent was just give him a beard, which the idea of Johnny's motion capture guy and stunt double having a beard but looking just like Johnny is hilarious to me, almost like the scene out of Spaceballs. But I was also thinking about at least initially giving him the hat, but I figured that would cover his hair up, defeating the purpose of him looking like Johnny almost. So I just gave him the motion capture headband instead. That actually helps to make the character look a lot more goofy, even though he looks like what he's supposed to look like. Then I sort of changed things up from normal and I sort of designed the accessories first before going ahead and doing the rest of the outfit. It's a skin tight motion capture suit, so I figured, I pretty much know how the outfit itself is going to do. I just need to do an outline of his body. So blocking his accessories was sort of more important in the outset. And then I added arm wraps for absolutely no reason, by the way. But I just figured it looked cool. I'm not sure if it does or not, but it at least adds to the just blandness of him just being a dude in a motion capture suit. Then I also designed him in some fake Nikes, but I didn't know what to do to replace the check, so the star from Johnny Cage's hype meter, I just put that on the shoe instead. I just gave him a star instead of a Nike check. I don't know, it might be one of the first MK designs I think I've done so far where I've designed sneakers on the character. I may be wrong on that, but I really don't remember doing that before. Anyways, I added the shoes, then went ahead and gave him the knee pads, the little, I don't even know what those things are called, but the little bands on the mocap suit itself. Then added the little motion capture balls to the suit, and it was off to the races from there. I was able to start coloring. Now, other than the fact that I knew I wanted to make the suit blue, I had no idea how I was going to color his design. I went with multiple shades of blue just to enhance the suit a bit. And then I knew the accessory parts would just be orange just because it's a nice complement to blue in the first place. And because it's such a small amount of orange in the design, it pops a lot. So after doing the multiple shades of blue and adding the orange in certain spots, it was almost pretty much done from a coloring aspect. So then I started the shading. Not gonna lie, normally, as I've said time and time again, doing these, the shading is where the actual picture really starts to pop. It didn't seem that way at first for me drawing this here, and I think that's because I had so few shadows in this one. I made the mistake of choosing the light source from the right or somewhere towards the right side of the image. So where the shadows are sort of popping in at don't really, I'm not gonna say they don't make sense, they just aren't adding to the actual picture all that much. So I couldn't really tell how the picture was coming together until I got to the highlights portion, which is usually the reverse of that. So I wasn't completely sold on the image as I was doing the shadows of it, I'm not gonna lie. Especially doing the shadows on the legs and whatnot, it really didn't seem like it was coming together all that well. But like I said, that was just because of the sheer lack of shadows. Once I started those highlights, that changed a lot, especially the small highlights on the suit itself. Adding light areas to the suit without making it completely bright to where it looks like he has a metallic mocap suit on, was glad I didn't make that mistake. So the picture actually started to look really decent from there. And then just adding a much brighter highlight, adding much lighter highlights onto stuff like the belt and the leather accessories that he had really added to the image itself. And because it's so much brighter than the highlights I put on the actual mocap suit, it doesn't necessarily take away from it at all. So then finishing up, just doing the highlights on his face and on his shades, which I almost forgot to do. I had to remember to go back and add the highlights to his shades. And then finishing up with little details and highlights in on his hair. I just needed to go back and do some specular highlights to sort of cap off this design. And then at the very end, I also had to remember to go back and add small lights to the little motion capture balls on his suit. And from there, it was pretty much done. And we have mocap. And I'm not gonna lie, this is a ridiculous design if I do say so myself. But it's a ridiculous Mortal Kombat character, which is why we've never seen him since Deadly Alliance for real. Or Armageddon. And like I said, I was really going for Johnny Cage's stunt double also being his motion capture guy, which is why the idea of Johnny Cage with the beard is sort of hilarious to me in this sense. But in any event, I'd appreciate you guys' feedback on this design and what you think of it. Whether or not you even think this would be worthy of like a return of mocap if he was to ever return in Mortal Kombat, or if you saw a design like this in a future Mortal Kombat game. Also, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you like this video. It would really help out a lot. And you all have a good one, and I'm out. So there's kinda like no females on Mortal Kombat 1's roster. Out of the 23 characters that's on the roster, how many of them are even women? Sindel, Katana, Melina, Tanya, Lee May, Ashura, and Natara. So that's 7 out of 23 characters. In MK11, we had Katana, Skarlet, Devora, Jade, Cassie, Jackie, Sonya, Frost, Cetrion. Now that I think about it out loud, that honestly ain't that many more. Why does it seem like 9 is such a larger roster of females than 7 does? Why does 7 just feel so little? Maybe it's because out of the 7 females that's on Mortal Kombat 1's roster, 5 of them are all in Outworld and they all like are part of Sindel's regime. So basically all the women are kind of the same thing. Well, today I'm about to add to that, not only to Mortal Kombat 1's female roster, but I'm about to add to more Outworld females as well, because I'm gonna try to do a design of Jade for MK1. Now, there is a chance that Jade could get in this game anyways. Hopefully she'll be in like Combat Pack 2, because there are kind of no women in Combat Pack 1 outside of the cameos, and the only one I could think of off the top of my head is Chameleon. So here's hoping that Jade can at least get on the second pack. And she's actually mentioned constantly in the character intros for different fighters in the game. Countess Jade is what she's referred to as. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to design a Jade outfit, but I specifically want it to look almost like the other females that are a part of Outworld, specifically Sindel, Katana, Melina, and Tanya. It really would have been nice to have Jade in a game where she didn't look like a Revenant, by the way. So going in, I already had a pose in mind of how I wanted her to look, so just went ahead and blocked that pose out. Then the first question became, what hairstyle did I want Jade to actually have? Now, Jade has had a ton of different looks in Mortal Kombat history, and I didn't know what to settle on because a lot of the hairstyle that Jade has had in Mortal Kombat, at least over the years, most of the females sort of have that in this game. There's actually a pretty different variety of hairstyles in this game. It made it sort of difficult to choose what I wanted to do without her looking like anything else. So I kind of settled on somewhat of the bun from Jade's UMK3 costume. So I rolled with that and then gave her a simpler mask than Katana and Melina. I didn't want to go too extravagant with the design because I feel like them Royal Outworld or Umgadi style designs, like the hyper design ones, at least for whatever that means for MK1. I felt like those should be reserved for like Melina and Sindel specifically. Katana is actually rather under designed compared to the other two, so I wanted to lean her more towards the Tanya Katana realm of her design rather than Melina or Sindel. So I went just sort of light on the accessories in comparison to the other MK1 females. But at the same time, I wanted something unique to make her stand out as Jade outside of just the staff. So looking at one of her, and I can't believe I'm saying this as much as I complain about it, but I looked at one of her Revenant designs and she had something, I don't know what, I was about to say a towel, but it clearly isn't, but she has some sort of rag or something around her neck. If you guys know what it is, let me know what it is in the comments below. But I sort of gave her that little rag or whatever around her neck. It actually did change a little bit of how bland the design was about to end up looking. And then her little sash or whatever in the front of her costume, I just added an extra layer of it just to make it unique. And I added almost like a I don't even know what you call it, but like one of those little stick things to sort of tie her bun in the background. The hell do I know about hair? In any event, so I basically got her designed and the pieces of her outfit that I wrapped my head around sort of blocked in with my line art, so then I could sort of start trying to figure out how I was going to color this woman and what actual color scheme I was going to use with her green design, because the only thing I knew going in is that she would be green. Before I get into the actual coloring phase of this design, I'd love to ask everybody to like the video and subscribe if you haven't to the channel. I have all sorts of random fighting game related stuff pertaining to artwork on my channel, as well as like also drawing and comic book things in general, just any random stuff that sort of hits my brain. So yeah, it'd be greatly appreciated. Anyways, back to the design. Obviously, in my mind at least, I knew I was gonna make Jade a dark-skinned woman as she's intended to be, though I will admit I have to do something about the actual colors of my tablet, because looking at it in video format and on my laptop, the color of her skin is actually lighter than what it is on my tablet, so I have to do something about sort of synchronizing the colors there. But in any event, she's still darker compared to the other females in the game, and obviously I also knew that I was going to make her green, at least make her outfit green. I decided on rolling with a blue accent to her design. I looked at a couple of her MK11 designs and some of the green and blue ones actually stood out to me quite well. At least I liked them a lot more than a lot of the greenish and purple or green and pinks or green and browns. I don't know, with her skin color, it just all looked washed out to me, so the green and blue popped a lot more. So I sort of rolled with that, and then from there it was going ahead and just doing the details, shading in aspects of the armor on her costume, shading in skin tone, stuff like that, getting the picture finished. And then also making sure I got her, I guess her little staff, making sure that it was lit up. I don't know why, I've had almost childlike throwbacks. I felt like I was coloring in like Darth Maul's lightsaber when I was drawing Jade at the end. But anyways, I got that sort of finished out, and that was the painting. So This is what, in my mind, a MK1 Jade costume would look like. Like I said, let's hope that she actually does get into the game at some point. I would love to know your guys' thoughts on whether or not this actually does look like a decent Jade outfit, whether or not it lives up to the other MK1 designs. I made it look like the simpler designs of a lot of the other MK1 ones, like MK1 ones. This name of this game is crazy, but in any event, sort of in the vein of all the other simplistic designs that we have for the game. So that's about it. That is our Countess Jade. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like I said, feedback is always greatly appreciated. And you all have a good one, and I'm out. Also, I kind of can't help myself, so for the end of this video, I'm actually going to leave you guys with what I think is the worst rendition of Jade ever seen in human history, so here you go. Kobra, one of the most ridiculed and bashed Mortal Kombat characters in history. And there are two very big reasons why that's the case. Number one, Kobra was a Mortal Kombat character in an era where a lot of people didn't really play Mortal Kombat games or don't know much about the 3D era of Mortal Kombat. A lot of modern Mortal Kombat players came back around either because they were young at the time or they left the series and then came back around Mortal Kombat 9, and most people just never touched those 3D Midway / NetherRealm games, so they never played with Kobra. Then there's the other side that simply looks at him as nothing more than a Ken Masters ripoff from Street Fighter. And I don't think that he's really a Ken ripoff entirely. But I think for all the bashing that people do of Kobra, I don't think people really know just how awesome of a character Kobra was to play with in Mortal Kombat Deception specifically. I've done some playing with Kobra in Mortal Kombat Armageddon. He plays similarly, but he's also greatly toned down. This is kind of due to those games sort of like Armageddon got rid of one of the fighting styles, and then just, I don't know, the gameplay in Mortal Kombat Armageddon with the air combat and everything, it's a little wonky. But to me, Mortal Kombat Deception Kobra is absolutely insane. He's so fun to play with. I had no idea that that man had infinite combos that couldn't be blocked in Deception. Oh, I wish I knew that back then. But anyways, for as much as people don't really know just how crazy of a character Kobra was to play with in Deception, they also don't know anything about Kobra's backstory being a member of the Black Dragon clan. And he's a lesser known member of the Black Dragon at that. Most people are only familiar with Kano and Cabal, which is why I wanted to take on this task of doing a redesign for Kobra so much. And since a lot of my redesigns have been in the vein of drawing characters who are missing from Mortal Kombat 1, I felt like it would be fascinating to draw a Black Dragon character, considering that outside of a faint mention of a possible Titan Kano, I haven't really seen so far any notion of the Black Dragon being in Mortal Kombat 1. So we're gonna see right now what an actual Kobra would look like. Not an actual Kobra, but what the character Kobra would look like in a modern day NetherRealm Mortal Kombat game. So let's go. Right off the bat, just for full disclosure, I'm not leaning away from the Kobra looking like Ken from Street Fighter thing. That I'm not abandoning that whatsoever. If I would have did this probably like a good 3 or 4 years ago, I probably would have drew Kobra and I would have wanted to give him a crazy new hairstyle and make him look radically different. But having seen the Snowblind Mortal Kombat animation and seeing how the Kobra looked in that cartoon, yeah, I'm against him looking like radically different from how he looked in the old Mortal Kombat games. So, that being said, while I am going to try to make him still look like Ken from Street Fighter, I don't want his outfit to look anything remotely like Ken. And the best way to do that is kind of to avoid his Mortal Kombat Deception look as much as possible. Specifically, the actual sort of warm-up suit that he's wearing. If I can stay away from that a little bit, I feel like he would look at least slightly less like Ken. Also, I do feel like that as far as the clothes Kobra's wearing, the Snowblind animation sort of had the right idea, trying to make him look more like a member of the Black Dragon clan. But I just felt like he's way too generic in that movie. Like, they could have added something flashy to his character. But I get it, it's a movie, he's a side character. But considering I'm designing him to be somebody that a player playing the game would actually want to play, I'm going to try to take almost like a Black Dragon look, or somewhat of that plain look that he had in Snowblind the animation, and sort of insert a part of that look from Mortal Kombat Deception into it. So that was the reason off the bat why I gave him somewhat of a fighting pose, and I also gave him a base of a hairstyle that looked similar to Ken from Street Fighter off jump, just so I could know what it would look like once I start fleshing out the rest of the design. Now, I also gave him a hoodie just because I thought Kobra's alternate design with the hood up in Mortal Kombat Deception was sweet, so I made it a point to give him that immediately. And I just added random tears and belt loops to his design, almost just to make it look like he's wearing some sort of beat up jacket. I wanted Kobra to look slightly more rugged in this. In his Mortal Kombat Deception design, he looked like a martial artist, which cool design, but it doesn't look like he should be a member of the Black Dragon clan, or any clan that's not really doing some type of hand-to-hand combat whatsoever. His design is sort of out of place. It's honestly amazing how many parallels to me doing this design that I have to drawing the Warong design that I did a few weeks ago for trying to do a Tekken 8 alternate, though I felt like this one came out a lot better. So after I got the base of his design sort of ironed out, and I sort of touched it up after I did the line art phase, adding a few random scars here and there just for no reason. Like I said, I wanted him to look more rugged, so I'm just randomly adding stuff that I think is going to look cool. Then it was on to the coloring phase, and for once I actually had an idea of what I wanted his color scheme to look like ahead of time. Also, by the way, I'd like to remind you guys, if you're enjoying the video so far, to go ahead and like and subscribe. It'd be greatly appreciated. Now getting back to the video, I wanted Kobra, obviously if he looks like Ken, he's gonna have blonde hair. But I also wanted him to sort of keep that black, white, and yellow color scheme from Mortal Kombat Deception. And I knew I was gonna somehow give him some type of white and yellow stripe down the side of his pants, sort of just like his alternate is in Mortal Kombat Deception. But I was gonna add black to that stripe because I initially was gonna give him some greenish looking pants, just so he looked a lot closer to Cabal and Kano's designs for Mortal Kombat 11. I just didn't really know how that stripe was gonna look until I got to it. And I also was gonna add a patch to his pants because the random sort of designs and logos and sort of patches that he has on his Mortal Kombat Deception look, I wanted to take those and sort of put them on his pants rather than leave them on his jacket. So I went ahead, started coloring out the design, and even in the initial coloring phase, it was already coming out exactly as intended for me. Then after that was finished, I went ahead and started on the patch on his pants. Then I got really adventurous after a while and went, oh, what the hell, I'm just gonna go ahead and give him the actual Black Dragon tattoo on one of his arms. This was definitely a spur of the moment type of thing because of the way I have his hands posed like he's getting ready to fight. You can't really see the full tattoo, but it is added and it's there. And already just in the coloring phase, I was ecstatic on how Kobra had already turned out. So then adding in the shadows, it started to come together a lot more, as it should. Sort of adding the shadows to his clothing and his skin sort of helped the character pop a little bit, but also doing the shadows on the little metallic knee pads that he has. Why he has metallic knee pads, I have no idea. Once again, just looks cool to me, so I did it. Ken from Street Fighter, Black Dragon Clan, martial arts, look cool, that's it. There's enough of the character there, but I sort of wanted an outrageous design that would fit, yet somehow still look completely unlike any other Mortal Kombat 1 design. So the key was gonna really be to make the design look interestingly simple, if that's even a thing. And I felt like that started coming together after I did the shadow phase for the design. And in the end, I touched it up with the highlights and that just brought the rest of the picture together. So then I got this finished product, a redesign for Kobra. Not gonna lie, this design was solely for my own amusement. So in all the redesigns I've recently been doing, and the fact that I seriously doubt we will ever see Kobra again in a Mortal Kombat game, I hope I'm wrong in this, but I seriously have my doubts at this point. It made me do this. So I really love your guys' feedback. Let me know in the comments below whether or not you actually like this design, or whether or not it seems like it actually fits Kobra at all. Better yet, a question I really want answered is, how many of you guys actually played with Kobra in Mortal Kombat Deception, if anyone? Very curious to know that. But anyways, that's the painting. You all have a good one, and I'm out. Alright, so I'm trying something different today for this redesign. So pretty much all the ninjas from Mortal Kombat are in MK1 in some shape, form, or fashion. But I was thinking about two specific ninja that I felt like haven't been in a Mortal Kombat game in quite a while, at least in a normal format. And those are the two missing Lin Kuei cyber ninjas, Cyrax and Sektor. But I've kind of always liked the concept of human Cyrax and human Sektor. I thought it was really cool how in MK9 it showed the normal Cyrax and Sektor before they actually got turned into cybernetic ninjas. And I thought having the choice between the regular one and the robot one was always cool, and not like the cyborg, half human, half robot Cyrax that had been in MK4 and Deadly Alliance. Like, I felt like MK nailed it with having the two. So with all the talk, and specifically Bi-Han's ending in MK1 of cybernetic Lin Kuei ninjas, I thought it would be cool if I did a design for Cyrax and Sektor for MK1. But the reason why I truly chose this challenge is I wanted to do sort of Lin Kuei ninja designs, but I wanted to make them specific for Cyrax and Sektor in human form just to see what they came out like. Because the thing that immediately bugged me when I heard Cyrax and Sektor mentioned was the same thing that sort of made me a little weird about Kuai Liang and Bi-Han being Scorpion and Sub-Zero is, if Scorpion is in the Lin Kuei clan, what does Cyrax look like? Because the Lin Kuei has two yellow ninjas now. So Cyrax was actually the original germ of the idea of why I wanted to try this, but in doing or wanting to do Cyrax, I figured I have to do Sektor as well. This is also going to be the extremely rare time when I actually do two redesigns at once. It's not a normal thing that I will be doing in the future or have done. The only other time I can think I did do this was with the Budokai designs, which I think were around my very first redesigns that I did. And this actually took a pretty good chunk of time to draw. So I'm going to get started now on MK1, Cyrax, and Sektor. So let's go. Okay, right off the bat, for this redesign, I actually didn't show the blocking in pose phase for this just because I knew I was going to be doing two characters at once, so I sort of just mirrored the two poses together and then sketched them out over top of it. Basically, I just skipped a step in this video. That being said, I knew going in that I wanted Cyrax and Sektor to have longer hair, simply because none of the other Lin Kuei ninjas don't. For whatever reason, everybody in Mortal Kombat 1, all the males with the exception of maybe Liu Kang, have a man bun. So I was going to make it a point not to do that with Cyrax and Sektor, which I think Cyrax, if I'm not mistaken, had tied dreads in MK9. So I just made longer dreads here. And for Sektor, I gave him a longer ponytail. I also wanted Sektor to look very evil for some reason. I don't know why, I just have this thought process in my mind that Sektor needs to look super evil and look like he'll fit in well with Bi-Han. I don't know why, that's just my thing, so I made it a point to design him that way. In the beginning, I almost gave him a beard and then thought against it. I thought that was a little too much because I do want all the characters to sort of look young, because most of the characters in MK1 look young. So after thinking that the beard was too much, I gave him a goatee. In hindsight, I can't really remember if I even settled on the goatee or not. I believe that I did. I could be wrong. Well, no, I didn't settle on the goatee. We'll get to that eventually anyways. Yeah, there's a very good reason why I couldn't remember if I did that or not. But I basically just gave Sektor, after designing his face and hair, just a matter of drawing like a Lin Kuei design on him, because I did want him to be dressed exactly like Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and Smoke. The alterations that I made to Sektor was mainly the tubes for him to be able to fire missiles and whatnot on his arms, like the little accessories on like his forearms and arms and whatnot. That was pretty much it for Sektor. And then for Cyrax, it was similar. I just gave Cyrax longer hair. I almost gave him facial hair too, but thought against it. Like I said, I wanted them to look young. But after giving Cyrax longer dreads, I also once again gave him a Lin Kuei outfit. But for him, I sort of just gave him like hand wraps, sort of like the way that looked on Scorpion. So I did it here for Cyrax as well. And I gave Cyrax his bombs to go around his legs. And then the other thing that I chose to do was actually give him special knee pads. I don't know why, I just felt like there needed to be one little difference in Cyrax than the rest of the ninjas. I don't know why it's always Cyrax for me either. Then it was on to doing the line art phase. Now, it was in the sketching of Cyrax and Sektor's line art that I came to the conclusion towards the end that these two really needed masks. Learning from sort of how I designed Ermac, I quickly realized that the designs were okay, but I felt like they would be much better looking designs if they were actual ninjas. Like, I'm thinking too attached to them just being Lin Kuei and them being robots. I'm not thinking of them as ninjas as much. So I went ahead and colored them, and after doing the coloring phase, I went back and actually gave them masks. This is why I couldn't remember whether or not I gave Sektor facial hair or not, because it's covered up, you can't tell no ways. In talking about the actual coloring phase though, once again needing Cyrax and Sektor to stand out but still looking like Lin Kuei ninjas, I wanted all their accented parts of their clothes to sort of be whatever color that they have. In Sektor's case is red and Cyrax's is yellow, but I wanted their outfits to be predominantly dark. Sub-Zero sort of has the blue outfit and Scorpion has the yellow one. Smoke is kind of gray, but with Cyrax, I knew I couldn't necessarily do that because, of course, Scorpion has the yellow outfit, so I have to just color his accents. It's the only other thing I can do for Cyrax. With Sektor, I just felt like he looked cooler with the darker design. So I sort of gave him a black or grayish outfit with red accent, sort of like I did Cyrax. Only with Cyrax is I made his even darker, just because it made the yellow pop a lot more off of the pretty much black outfit. He almost looks like he should glow in the dark because it's pretty much just neon running around, but that was my approach to actually coloring the two of them. And then the design sort of came together much better after I did the shadows and highlights to him. Specifically the highlights, because it kept the two characters from looking like bland designs. Like I said, they're simple Lin Kuei outfits, but I don't know what it is about the just adding the highlights and shadows to the picture, specifically the highlights, that just adds some type of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, I guess, the polish to the designs. And now even going back and thinking about it as I'm talking, Sektor's design in hindsight couldn't have had a ton more red in it, because now that I think out loud, he probably would have looked like Ermac. It might have looked like I had just drawn a human Ermac had I made him any more red, so I think I took the right approach with his design. So when it actually came to the finished product, I personally think that they both sort of fit the Lin Kuei pretty nicely, at least in my own personal opinion, or I'm not going to say that. I feel like I like the designs a lot. The Sektor one feels a lot more Lin Kuei than the Cyrax one does to me. Though I like the Cyrax design a lot, I don't know if I should have put like a light gray in there somewhere or something to just make it sort of look more like a Lin Kuei design, but maybe he looks like a black and grayish design with the yellow accents. Maybe it's so extreme that he stands out more. I don't know. Like I said, all the Lin Kuei ninjas have pretty much the same design, with a slight exception for Bihan. So trying to design Cyrax and Sektor having the same look while still making it unique was still kind of a challenge, even though you obviously know how simplistic it's gonna look on paper. But anyways, that's it. That's the finished product. Let me know what you actually think of the Cyrax and Sektor design below, whether or not you think they fit or which one you like individually or as a pair. Also, be sure if you like the video to like and subscribe if you haven't. And you all have a good one, and I'm out.
Remove the shadow from the light. The shadow grows.
Okay, as you can probably tell, I'm about to be designing Shinnok for this video. I was recently suggested to draw Shinnok, though I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest Shinnok fan. I'm not really good playing with the character, and then as far as his actual story in Mortal Kombat lore is concerned, I feel like he's way too important for as little as we've seen him. That's not a reason not to like the character, by the way, but it's just he's so underdeveloped to me. He's extremely important, and Mortal Kombat 11 made him way more valuable to the story than was ever explained in the past, him being Kronika's son and all, but we barely got any of him in MKX's story. Like, I think between Mortal Kombat's 9 and 11, Shinnok might have like maybe 20 minutes of screen time, if even that. Think about how much Chronicle we got in MK11 and how little Shinnok we got in MKX. Like, that's crazy to me. But that being said, I always saw the potential with Shinnok's character that's just never been expanded on too much. And I thought we were going to get a lot more sort of in-depth with him after MK9, especially that ending scene with him and Quan Chi after Raiden defeated Shao Kahn, with the help of the Elder Gods, of course. Just Shinnok's war on the Elder Gods not being explained is crazy to me. Like, if I didn't watch other YouTubers' Shinnok videos or like read comic books and all types of stuff like that, I'd have no idea. But from a design standpoint, I don't think Shinnok necessarily has had bad character designs. I thought his design in Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero was a little over the top and cartoonish and corny, but the way they made it look in Mortal Kombat 4 was much better. I felt like his design got better with each Mortal Kombat game. I was excited seeing as how he looked in, like I said, that ending scene in MK9. They made him look way cooler in MK11. I mean X. He's a severed head in 11, so we're not gonna get too much into that. But I wanted to try to do a design, as usual, designing Shinnok in the style of the simplistic MK1 designs, but I wanted to do one for Shinnok that sort of has a classic-like look to him, but is sort of along the vein of MKX Shinnok. Basically, if he was in MK1, like how I would prefer to see him look. And I'm not gonna lie, since I'm a sadistic fan of Mortal Kombat 4, I don't know why I'm such a glutton for punishment, I'm going to keep that design in mind a lot as I design the character or create the character. I know I just said the word design like 45 times in the last statement. It is what it is. Anyways, before I stammer and blubber anymore over my words, let's just get started. All right, so right off the bat, because it's Shinnok, I couldn't really think of any crazy pose or elaborate pose that I wanted to put him in that sort of defined the character that was going to be facing straight on. All the ideas that I had would be him facing against the camera or something like that. And I wanted to keep it really simple just so you can actually get a feel for the design. So the one thing I knew I was going to do by heart was have him holding the amulet. Just because obviously Shinnok's amulet is like one of the most powerful items in all of Mortal Kombat next to the hourglass. And I guess if somebody wanted to debate that, they probably could, but that's a whole other conversation. Initially, when I was actually doing the design of the costume over top of like his base that I drew, I was almost going to do like a bone design for Shinnok, but I felt like that was a little too on the nose with some of his MKX skins. And like I said earlier, I wanted to do something a little more classic along the lines of MK4. So I changed that, made it a little more simple. I also wanted a slightly almost regal undead design for, well, he's Shinnok, so he kind of looks undead and pale to begin with. But I wanted him to look a lot more regal, but not as plain as his MK4 design, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And I went kind of crazy with this one as opposed to like a lot of the previous designs I've done recently. I gave Shinnok a lot of accessories. So he has weird like pointy shaped objects and horns and stuff on a lot of different parts of his clothing. A lot of horn shaped things all over the place. I don't know. It just fits Shinnok. Like, I can't explain it. The more evil or demon-like qualities to Shinnok, the more I feel like it's in the vein of the character, or at least someone who should be watching over NetherRealm. So at first I was just gonna give him like short sleeves, but then I thought to give him like the little spikes on the end of the sleeves, and I left drawing his actual head and the little, I don't know if you call it a crown or what the hell that is that he wears on top of his head when he fights. I honestly don't know what Shinnok's actual skull looks like. We've never seen it. He's always had the crazy thing on his head, but I didn't know how I wanted that to look. So I gave it a more horn-like, a devilish-like design. It's Mortal Kombat. But like I made the horns closer to his MKX design, not the big like weird shape, whatever that monstrosity is that he had in MK4 and Mythologies, especially the Mythologies one. So I just went ahead and just ripped off the MKX one as a base and made like slight changes to it just to keep it safe without over designing the thing to the point to where the character no longer looked right. And then I went ahead and completed the line art over top of that. Also, for full disclosure too, this was a time where the phase where I draw the character in red, sort of to get all the details in, I made it a point to do extra details there because I knew I was going to flip that over top of my finished product just so it had the extra details that I didn't feel like drawing over and over with the line art. Basically, I shortcutted some of the design, but it actually looked right in the end product. Felt the need to explain that here because I do that quite a bit, but I never explain it, so there's just extra stuff in the final design that I'd never talk about. Just a nitpick on my part. But anyways, continuing along, I started the coloring phase from here. Before I continue with that, just let everybody know, go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, especially if you like the art content that I do here. I have a lot of redesigns and fighting game related stuff, but now that that's out of the way, getting back to the video. So I started the coloring phase as usual. I didn't really have a plan here. I'm sort of going by the seat of my pants. The only thing I had set in stone, his skin would be pale because it is Shinnok, and I knew that his head piece thing, whatever that is, would be like dark red as well. Looking at his MK4 design, I wanted the top to be somewhat red, like I wanted to keep somewhat of the red and green theme, but I also wanted to incorporate some of the like really dark blueness from the dark blue sort of coloring from his MKX design and implement it. I don't know why I keep wanting to say MKX is MK11, and it's bothering me that I keep having that hiccup. I keep thinking Shinnok is in MK11 and he's not. But anyways, I added the dark blue in. I sort of used that a lot for like his accessories and whatnot. And then the rest of like the pants and stuff was green. Subtle touch, but it makes the design look not like entirely uniform, I should say. Trying to keep it from being bland and have it look a tad bit interesting. I also used a different shade of gold for little pieces of his like knee pads and arm wraps over his gloves, and went ahead and used it for the belt too, just so that I didn't have to overuse the sort of gold that I had for his attire. Now, I'm not gonna lie though, when I first finished this, at least the coloring, not the full design, he looked sort of corny, and it's sort of just because of the shoes to me. It made it seem like Shinnok was wearing tennis shoes or something, like he just looked a little ridiculous. Thankfully, that sort of looked a lot better once I got into the shadow phase or the shading phase. I'm very thankful for that because I'm not gonna lie, once I finished coloring it, I kind of soured on the design. I like the colors, but I don't know why the shoes were just bothering me so much. But I trusted my gut and went ahead and did the shading, and everything came out the way that I wanted it to. I'm actually very proud of myself. After shading it, it looked a lot more like a Mortal Kombat design to me. And then starting the highlights, specifically the highlights on all the gold pieces, was where the picture began to pop. Like there's so much of it, but that regal feel that I was sort of looking for once I added all those details, it helped immensely. So I'm really happy that I made the design choices that I did with Shinnok in the first place. And also midway through the point of actually doing the highlights, I went ahead and added that red layer that I told you about earlier back over top of the design. And it was pretty much finished from there. I just had to do specular highlights, and here we are. I have a brand new Shinnok redesign. And I'm not gonna lie, I really like it a lot. Considering that Shinnok is a character that I'm not the biggest fan for, I think this design came out very well. I was sort of dreading drawing him from the start because I wasn't really sure how it was going to come out. I'm always weary of designing characters that I'm not a fan of, but I think this one was actually pretty decent. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate it, especially in comparison to a lot of his other Mortal Kombat designs. Like I always say, comments to my artwork, or at least feedback to my artwork, is always welcome. And you all have a good one, and I'm out.